You open the fridge late at night, half awake, and there they are. Whole, 2%, Skim. 3 cartons that look like they came from the same place, because they did. Same animal, same word on the front. Yet you already know they won't land the same way on your tongue, or in your body. One feels rich and steady. One feels like a compromise. One feels like milk's ghost. So what actually changes when the percentage changes? Not the cow, not the color. Something quieter. The way milk is built, the way we learn to fear fat, and the way a simple drink got taken apart and put back together. Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. Milk before the labels. Milk feels like the definition of ordinary. It's poured, not pondered. It shows up in cereal, in coffee, in small school cartons with a straw you jab through foil. But fresh milk, in its original state, is not a single uniform liquid. It's a living mixture, mostly water, carrying proteins, milk sugar, minerals, and tiny globules of fat. Left alone, it reveals its secret. The heavier parts settle into their own rhythm, and the lighter fat slowly drifts upward. A pale layer of cream forms at the top, like a quiet weather system inside the glass. For most of human history, that's simply what milk did. It separated. It changed. It reminded you it was real. And people worked with that reality. If you wanted butter, you didn't buy a different carton. You waited, you skimmed, you churned. Milk wasn't a fixed product, it was a starting point. The kitchen decided what it would become. Modern dairy shelves teach a different lesson. They promise sameness, every pour identical, every week identical. And the price of that sameness is control. The decision to measure fat, to standardize it, and to sell you milk as numbers. Whole milk, the standard that tastes like home. Whole milk is the closest thing in the store to that older, unedited milk. Even then, it's not wild. It's standardized, about 3.25% milk fat, a number set in the early 20th century to keep quality consistent from farm to city. That small percentage does a lot of work. Fat carries flavor molecules the way warm air carries perfume. It rounds the edges of taste. It gives milk a slightly sweet, full-bodied feeling that lingers just long enough to register as nourishment. When whole milk touches your tongue, it doesn't just pass by. It coats, softly, like it's making a promise to stay. It's also why whole milk tends to feel more filling even when the calorie difference doesn't look dramatic on paper. Your brain isn't a spreadsheet. It responds to texture, richness, and the slow signal that says, "This counts." And fat isn't only about pleasure. Milk still brings protein, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, quiet building blocks your body uses without applause. But the presence of fat also changes how you absorb certain nutrients. Vitamins like A and D are fat-soluble, meaning they travel and absorb more easily when fat is present. In that sense, whole milk isn't extra, it's a complete structure. For a long time, though, complete started to sound suspicious. Whole milk didn't lose popularity because it stopped tasting good. It lost popularity because a new story arrived, one that turned fat into a villain. When fat became a suspect. In the mid-20th century, heart disease rates were rising, and modern life was changing faster than people could metabolize it. Scientists and institutions looked for a clear culprit, something you could point to, name, reduce. Saturated fat became an easy target. It was visible on food labels. It was present in familiar comforts. It could be measured, cut, and marketed against. Humans love a single lever. Pull this one thing down, and the problem will follow. Fat became that lever. Public enemy number one. A tidy explanation for a messy world. A cultural mood formed around the idea that less fat meant more health. Governments and health organizations encouraged people to reduce dietary fat. Hospitals and schools followed the guidance. Grocery aisles responded. The public didn't just change what it bought, it changed what it believed. Richness became guilt. Creaminess became danger. And in the background, nutrition science kept moving. Some modern research has since complicated the old assumption that whole milk automatically leads to weight gain or heart disease, suggesting dairy fat may be more neutral or even protective than once thought. But the shift in public imagination had already happened, and habits are slow to unwind. The dairy industry did what industries do when the wind shifts. It adapted. It learned to pull fat out of milk and sell the remaining liquid as virtue. And in that shift, low-fat milk stepped forward as the polite middle child. Still milk, but allegedly safer. Low-fat milk, the rebuilt middle. Low-fat milk, usually 1% or 2%, isn't simply whole milk with a little less. It's made by subtraction and reconstruction. Cream is skimmed off, and then a measured portion is blended back in to hit a precise number. What you drink is a designed compromise. Less fat than whole milk, but not stripped to the bone. Remove the richest part, set it aside, then add back just enough to land on a label that feels responsible. Milk, translated into math. On paper, it looks like a tidy solution. You keep most of the protein and minerals. You lower the calories per glass. You get something that still tastes recognizably like milk. For decades, it became the default recommendation, especially in places where one-size-fits-all choices are preferred. Schools, cafeterias, hospitals. But the body doesn't live on paper. When fat is reduced, satisfaction often drops with it. Fat helps your brain read a food as filling. It plays a role in satiety and hormone signals. With low-fat milk, some people finish a glass and feel like something is missing, as if the drink did its job too quickly. And when satiety drops, the neat calorie savings can get erased later, through extra snacking, larger portions, or simply the quiet search for the fullness that didn't arrive. There's another detail most cartons don't make you feel, but your body can notice. Vitamins. When fat is removed, naturally occurring fat-soluble vitamins like A and D tend to leave with it. To solve that, manufacturers typically add them back. Low-fat milk isn't nutritionally bad, but it is more processed than the story suggests. It's not just less, it's rebuilt. And once you see that, you start to understand the strange truth of the dairy aisle. The healthier option is sometimes the one that required more hands, more steps, and more decisions you never witnessed. Skim milk, the arithmetic of thinness. Skim milk takes the same logic and pushes it to the edge. It contains less than 0.5% milk fat, so little that the texture changes immediately. The creamy weight is almost entirely gone. What remains is water, protein, lactose, and minerals, moving through your mouth with less resistance. If you're counting calories, skim milk can look impressive. It can contain nearly 40% fewer calories than whole milk per serving. And for years, it became the gold standard of dieting culture, a symbol of discipline, a drink you chose to prove you were trying. But skim milk reveals a problem numbers don't capture: physics. Fat globules change how a liquid flows across the tongue. They alter viscosity, the way it coats, the way it holds flavor in place. Remove those globules and the liquid becomes thinner, faster, less anchoring. That's why skim milk can taste watery or oddly chalky even when the ingredients are still milk. The sensation your brain associates with being fed, the gentle coating, the slow linger, has been edited out. So the experience shifts. You're not only drinking fewer calories, you're drinking a different kind of comfort. For some people, that's exactly the point. For others, it's why Skim never satisfies, no matter how virtuous the label sounds. Some people prefer that lightness. Others tolerate it because they learn to treat pleasure as suspicious. Either way, skim milk is a reminder that food isn't only chemistry. It's experience, it's mouthfeel and expectation, and the stories we attach to a glass. So the question returns as it always does. Which milk is best? No best milk, only the right context. The honest answer is that there isn't a universal winner, because milk isn't a moral test. It's a tool. Whole milk can make sense when growth is happening fast, when appetite is hard to regulate, when fullness matters as much as nutrients. It can also make sense when you simply want milk to taste like milk, round, steady, satisfying. Low-fat milk can fit a different rhythm. People who drink milk daily, who want a balance between taste and calorie control, who don't want to swing toward extremes. For some, it's the quiet middle that keeps habits consistent without feeling deprived. Skim milk can have its place too, sometimes because of specific medical guidance, sometimes because the lighter texture genuinely matches what a person enjoys. Preference is not a failure of willpower. It's data. It's the body saying, "This feels right to me." What matters is understanding what you're choosing. Not just the percentage, but the structure behind it. One carton is closer to milk's old shape. Another is milk adjusted by measurement. Another is milk stripped nearly clean. Different tools for different days. Not a moral test, just a tool. And that's the small, strange revelation hiding in the refrigerator. These aren't three personalities of the same drink. They're three versions of a relationship between people and fat, between taste and fear, between tradition and control. Milk looks innocent because it's familiar, but familiarity can be a disguise. Under the label is history, a time when cream was normal, a time when fat became a suspect, a time when industries learned to rebuild food to match new beliefs. In the end, milk isn't good or bad. It's not a confession you make with your shopping cart. It's a tool you use for a life you're actually living. And once you know the story, that late-night choice in front of the fridge stops being automatic. It becomes a little moment of clarity, one small decision carrying the weight of an entire era. If you enjoyed this kind of quiet unpacking of everyday things, give the video a like and subscribe for more. And if there's another simple thing you want us to decode next, leave it below. We might feature your idea in an upcoming episode.